Now, there's something in this card that makes the card much slower than you think. Even if you look at the best version of Virgil van Dijk, we get a team of the year every single year, and it's not acceleration, there's something that makes the card much slower than you think. And people don't know this, but it's actually lengthy. Lengthy is actually the worst one to use. Now, the biggest misconception is lengthy makes your players faster. Well, just by common sense, we know that lengthy only affects acceleration. Thereby, it's impossible to make a player going faster because lengthy only affects your acceleration. It doesn't affect the sprint speed. And if you don't believe me, you can go into a game, go use low sprint speed, and you'll see you're still going to be slow. So this argument that lengthy makes the player more faster is false. It only affects acceleration at the speed where you're going to reach your the sprint speed. So sprint speed is overall the most important thing. But this is something else that people don't realize. Do you see here, right? This is the old system of lengthy, right? I'm just going to show you a video. This is the old system of lengthy. Have a look. Now, okay, you can see, oh, you're looking. So basically what happens here is just effectively, what happens is they all start at the same time. And have a look at lengthy. Lengthy is actually slower than explosive. Now, in this game, where speed boost is actually one of the best ways to get past someone, speed boosting, you want high acceleration, but you want the player to be explosive. That is why for a defender and an attacker, it's actually more advisable to use explosive. Because think of it when you're defending, right? And let me draw this out for you. When you're defending, if your opponent speeds past you, you also want to speed back and recover in time. If you have lengthy, you're going to accelerate slower. And then this is the thing people don't understand. They think there's some association with lengthy, but you can see explosive. And this is done with the only difference between the characteristic difference between these players here is the acceleration type. But you can see, for example, here you reach the second line first, and it's only here when the line is basically equal. You can see, look, you can see at this point, you could argue controlled wins, and most players I would say are controlled, but you see lengthy only wins. Have a look at this. Is the most shocking thing people don't understand. Lengthy only wins towards the end where they get the boost, and then the line evens out. But you see, when in your entire life do you have your center backs starting here and then you run back the entire pitch? It never happens. Now, maybe in a specific situation for a winger or a fullback, maybe it makes sense. But you don't run back. What would realistically happen is in the defensive stance, if you're playing a high line, or let's say you lose the ball in your own half and you lost the ball on the halfway line, realistically speaking, explosive. Let's say let's say we start. So just to make this bit of a realistic example, let's say at this point that's the halfway line. So just over here would be the box. Explosive will get to the ball faster and recover the ball quickly, where you can see lengthy trails behind. And that is the biggest difference. When someone plays a through ball in behind, where do you lose a situation? You don't lose it later on. You lose it here when your opponent speeds ahead of you and then you can't catch up. It's better to get the boost as much as possible, then you can stop them, as opposed to getting the boost over here when it's too late. And that is the biggest misconception, is that people think lengthy. Now, why is this known? And this is the most important thing. I'll type in NealGuides lengthy here. There was a video from FIFA 23. And I explained in this video, the same stance really worked. The issue was when this came out, the accelerate playstyle for explosive didn't work. And that is why, if you look at some of the best defenders that I have inside the game, I have Kunde. Now, not only is Kunde fantastic because he's got the jockey playstyle, which makes him faster when he's jockeying, and he's got good sprint speed, although it should be a bit higher, a bit nerfed this year, 83, and got good agility and balance, but he's got quick step. Now, quick step means you accelerate faster during explosive sprint. Explosive sprint is running in a straight line. So in theory, for a player to run at the fastest ability would be 99 sprint speed, 99 acceleration, and let's say they're without the ball, so we're not going to include rapid here, they're without the ball, then you want to be using quick step. Where jockey comes into play is that if you're holding the run and jockey. Whereas rapid only takes into effect when the player has the ball at their feet. So do you see why 99.99% of the community have absolutely no idea about this, but they confuse lengthy and they think that means the player is more effective and more pacey? And this is the downside. The only reason why a player like Van Dijk makes up for it is because although it takes him longer to reach his sprint speed is much higher. If these two stats were changed around, I promise you, Van Dijk was, let's say we use gold Van Dijk, right? When the game comes out, I promise you, if he has 66 sprint speed, hardly anyone would use this card. The sprint speed is what saves him. And that is why, even if you take into account the accelerate, right? Even if you take it into account, the sprint speed is still the most important thing because you're running over a period of time. You're never running in short bursts, but where you are running in short burst is defensively. And that is why, if your opponent has the ball and your opponent does a speed boost, you want to have quick step so you get the fastest run in a straight line. And then you also want to have the jockey playstyle so you can move in the run jock move and when you transform into that shape. Good agility and balance, and good sprint speed and good acceleration. That's what will ultimately make you recover the situation. And that is why players like Kunde, people think, oh, Kunde plays beyond his stats. It's not necessarily plays beyond his stats. It's because he has the jockey playstyle, which makes him move faster. And of course, he has the quick step playstyle and good sprint speed and acceleration. And this is why this defender still stays there being the best. And of course, stamina, you can say at the end of the game, takes into account. But that's just the big misconception. Now, where lengthy would make sense is, let's say, for example, you're running, for example, here. But even then, let's say you're having a race. And let's just say, hypothetically speaking, both of these players now, we're just going to assume both of these players here. Let's just say they both have the exact same stats. Same acceleration, same everything, same height, same stride, same animations. But the player in white, let's say this player was explosive, okay? Now, you'd want the speed boost early on as opposed to, and then let's say, for example, like here, they'll reach even stance. And then let's say, for example, like here, that's when lengthy will start kicking in. So actually, you want the boost early on as opposed to later. But that is why I'm saying maybe if you were to trigger a left back going forward, you could argue lengthy would be important. You could argue in that situation going forward. But still, from the defensive end, let's say this is the left back now, and that's your attacker, you want to be able to recover in time. So that is why, in my opinion, lengthy is not the way to go. Now, truthfully speaking, do I look at it? No. If the player has lengthy, it's not the end of the world. I'm still looking at the sprint speed and acceleration, because if the acceleration is slow and the sprint speed is slow, it's irrelevant. So when I'm choosing a centre back, you know my filters. I'm choosing at this stage during team of the season, 88 sprint speed, 85 defensive awareness. I think this is too low, actually. I'll be honest, at this stage, I'm going towards 88 and I'm going towards 90 sprint speed. Now, there's going to be some people here where their pace stats looks low. And that's because they're like, for example, like Van Dijk. And that's solely because acceleration is too low. So when I add the filter of acceleration, this is what's going to kill a lot of these players. And Van Dijk doesn't make the cut. Now, if you play passive and you don't make any mistakes, then Van Dijk is perfect. But if you're an aggressive player like I am, look at this new Maldini card. Quick step playstyle, good sprint speed, good acceleration. With a shadow, he's 99. It's a free card. I promise you, if you can do this and get your, was it 25 wins out of 35, whatever, this is one of the best centre backs you can get. And we have given it for free. Not as a left back, but as a centre back. What would be the dream for me is if you had the jockey playstyle plus and quick step playstyle plus, and then he had explosive. That would be the dream. But because his accelerate type is combined and how the accelerate works, it depends on a combination of stats. So for someone to be explosive, they have to be under 5'9", have above agility, above greater than or equal to acceleration, and have the strength versus agility argument. So in theory, Maldini already is too tall. But do you understand the point I'm trying to say? So explosive is actually the way forward.